Hello, welcome to another video from the conscientious biologist Ben Gallagher. This is the 7th one now in the Ecology series, and it looks at the water cycle. This is quite a quick presentation because there's not a lot of information in here, and it's mostly abiotic, not biotic. So it's only linked into biology partially. It's suitable for GCSE level, and as always, please do subscribe to my channel if you haven't done so already. So water is a massively important molecule for life. We're made up of a huge percentage of it, as are all organisms. You use it for breaking down molecules, you use it for creating cytoplasm to allow everything to move around, you use it as a liquid part of your blood for transportation. It's such a vital molecule. So we need to look at how water moves around through any ecosystem and environment. So let's have a look at this picture here, because this represents most of the elements that we need in the water cycle. And what I'm going to do to start us off, down there in the ocean, I'm going to put a water molecule. Now hopefully that molecule should look fairly familiar to you. It's H2O. We've got the two small hydrogen atoms attached to the central oxygen atom. And when we're thinking about the water cycle, I really want you to start thinking about it, as I've put it there, as the journey of a water molecule, because we're not necessarily just talking about huge bodies of water moving from one place to another. We're talking about how individual water molecules move around within the environment. So let's start with that molecule there. If we've got the ocean, so we've got a huge body of water, as the sun shines on it and it heats up, you're going to get evaporation. That's going to put the molecules of water up into the atmosphere as water vapor. Wind's going to come along and push that water over the land, push it over mountains in particular, where they'll form clouds, because the water molecules, because of the convection currents and because of the air movements around mountains, it's going to help the water molecules to just coalesce and stick together, form lumps. When those water molecules join together, they'll form larger droplets. When those droplets get too heavy, they're going to fall back down. So we get precipitation. Precipitation is just the correct name for rain. Okay, so the water molecules are now going to go from the atmosphere, from the clouds, dropping down. So the water molecules are now back in liquid form on the land. Now, logically, of course, if they've fallen on mountains, they're going to go downhill and you're going to get surface runoff. Now, surface runoff is an overall term for just water moving along the surface of the earth. So really we're focusing there mainly on rivers and streams and things like that, where water just moves along the surface of the land slowly downwards until it gets back to the sea. So a huge proportion of the water just moves back to the oceans by surface runoff. Now that completes a cycle. Look, we started in the ocean, we've ended up back in the ocean. But there's a lot more things to add to that, because actually not all of the water moves through surface runoff. A lot of it moves underground. That's called percolation. Okay, percolation meaning the water molecules can percolate down through soil, through rocks underground, and they move in slow underground rivers and underground movements of water to get back to the oceans as well. So it's just another way of returning that water to the ocean. Now, everything that's there already is all abiotic. There's nothing on there that's biological. There's no living things taking part at all in this cycle so far. So this is abiotic. If you want to take a screenshot of that, just so you've got it as a reference of this is abiotic, that would happen whether there was anything living or not. That's what happened before any life evolved. Okay, so when the earth was quite young and there was water vapor, it would fall as rain, it would go on the bare rock that was all there was on earth and go back to the big oceans, and it would just do that. We now need to add the biotic parts of that. And of course, the biotic parts, we're talking about organisms. Now, as that water is going through surface runoff, you're going to get lots of organisms using it. Plants, not least, are going to have their roots down into the ground in the water, and they're going to be sucking it up into their bodies of the plants. You've got animals that will be drinking the water, bacteria that can absorb it by osmosis. So a lot of that water that was there in the surface is going to end up inside organisms. Now, of course, the plants containing some of the water will be eaten by animals. Those animals now containing water will be eaten by other animals. So the water can pass directly from one organism to another through the trophic levels. But you've also got things like animals that are drinking the water, but a lot of that will then just be urinated out and excreted back straight out onto the surface where it could just carry on its movement. So you've got water moving in between organisms as they interact with each other. But there's two other key things with organisms. All of those organisms, once they've got water inside them, and they're producing water, of course, by respiration, that water is going to leave in their breath. When you breathe out water vapor. You've probably seen that if you breathe against a cold window, you fog it up with your breath. That's because the water vapor that fogs against the glass, that's just the water there condensing on the cold glass. So you produce water through respiration, you breathe it out. Well, that water is going back into the atmosphere. So like the arrow there was showing that going back as water vapor in the air. But actually a vast amount of water gets put up into the air through transpiration. This diagram's really good because it's covered in trees, covered in plants. Well, remember back to the plant physiology stuff and the osmosis presentations. Plants suck up water through their roots, send it up through the xylem, and a lot of that water leaves through the stoma in the leaves. Those are the holes in the lower epidermis of the leaves. So that water also goes back into the atmosphere. That's why rainforests are called rainforests, because all of the trees and all of the plants there doing huge amounts of transpiration put so much water into the atmosphere that it falls again as rain. It's why it rains so much in rainforests, why they're so humid, because all that water is being sucked out of the ground and put back into the atmosphere. So this is now complete. This has got all the abiotic and biotic on it, but it's quite complex. You've got quite a few loops. So take a screenshot of this, but like we did for carbon cycle, we'll do a simplification as well. But take a screenshot of this one first. Okay, so for a simplification then, let's start off with that water is mostly found in large bodies such as oceans and lakes. So we'll put that over there. What happens then is you get evaporation. So the heat from the sun causes water to evaporate and form clouds. Those clouds, as we saw on the last one, can then be blown over towards the land, or the clouds tend to form around mountains anyway. Once you've got those clouds, the water is going to drop as precipitation, as rain, and it's going to make its way back to oceans and lakes. So the water goes back to the oceans. Now note I've got the two terms there, the surface runoff and percolation. Just to remind you, surface runoff, we're basically talking about rivers running along the surface of the earth. Percolation is underground through soil and rocks. Okay. But often there's a few steps along that way. We've said you've got the plants and animals taking the water in their cells eaten by other creatures and so on, so it can pass through animals and back and forth. And you've got the transpiration and respiration. Okay, so this is now a simplification of what was on the last one, but we've basically got this cycle of evaporation from the oceans and then returning to the oceans, but with the biotic parts interfering with that as it goes along. So take a screenshot of this one. This is the key simplification. Okay, and that's it. That's the last of our matter recycling videos. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take a slightly change of perspective in this ecology unit. Everything we've looked at so far are the natural processes that have been going on for millions of years on planet Earth, how all of the natural things in the earth. Where we're going to go now, and for the last couple of videos, is to look at how we as humans have had a massive impact on that natural balance of things. How have we shifted how these cycles work? How have we changed ecosystems, in some cases irreversibly? So your next video needs to be Ecology 8, which is on human impact. As always, please do subscribe to my channel if you haven't done so already, and like this video if it was useful. And I do now have a page on Facebook, so if you search for The Conscientious Biologist on Facebook, you'll find lots of other things, not just links to these videos on there. Thank you.